Hello, YouTube, and welcome to Superpower Broadcasting. My name is Kevin, and in this video, I'm just going to be discussing how there is an election coming up in Canada, and there is one candidate running in particular that it's just a bundle of just cringe and fringe, and his name is Maxime Bernier. And as I call him, Canada's Bernie. And, well, you may ask, well, Kevin, Bernie Sanders in America is a left-wing, self-proclaimed socialist, whereas Maxime Bernier in Canada is well, I should say Bernie in America. I may have said Canada. I cannot remember, but whereas Maxime Bernier in Canada, he is a libertarian, or as I call him, a lawbertarian, because he's a clown. Well, and of course, socialist and libertarian are not equal, right? That is a nominal difference between the two. But here's the difference. Here's the uniting factor that bridges the chasm between their two ideologies. They are both populists. And what's the difference between the populist left and the populist right? That's right. Nothing. And I mean you might say, well, economics. Yeah, you'd be surprised just how much actually the libertarians they don't actually really care that much about small government. In fact, they like big government quite a bit, as long as it's throwing blue-haired feminists off helicopters and stuff. They love it. So no, I'm done with the whole small government thing. No, the small government type people are generally like neoconservatives and stuff. That they're people like myself who want low taxes, but a big military until we liberate the world, and then we can go down to a small military and so on and so forth. No, the libertarians, they're not actually small government. Like, they have a lot in common with Bernie. They're for big government. They're for big authoritarian type government. Or like a big church instead of government. Either way, they're for some big institution that controls everybody's lives, right? And Bernie's for like this massive amount of government interference in the economy and everything. Well, here's the thing. They're both populists, so their sensibilities, all their memes, everything are going to largely coincide with each other. What are their two big talking points? Elites bad, common working people good. Now, a lot of political campaigns revolve around that message of working people good. Well, there's a difference with populism, of course, which is that they don't actually care about the working people at all. Like, they're just a prop so that the head of the personality cult can achieve power. And in both cases, there's a bit of a difference between the two, and the rabidness of their fans. Like Bernie, for example, himself has dissociated himself from the Bernie bros that viciously and misogynistically attacked Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton, the base, the patron goddess of hawkery. They went after her quite a bit during the last election in 2016. Just the amount of vitriol was just disgusting, right? No, they hated her because she was a woman, basically, and they didn't think that she had any role in politics. Oh, turns out socialists, they don't like women very much. That's not surprising. Like, look at every socialist society in history. Look at North Korea right now. Women are seen as chattel to produce children for the great leader. Like, that's how a socialist system operates. They see women as cattle to produce soldiers. Like, that's how the socialist system works. They call it harmonious or whatever. They're deeply patriarchal. And then Bernier himself is I wouldn't say a principled libertarian, but like he has the pretense of a lot of actual libertarian ideas, like Ben Shapiro type stuff, small government, low taxes, that sort of thing. But like his fanboys. It's the same thing with Bernie. It's like, sure, he may to some extent disavow some of the more ridiculous aspects of their absurdity, but no, they're like deeply pro big institutions as long as they crush degenerates as they see it. So like they're not actually for small government. They're not actually like libertarians in the literal sense of the word. They just want to own the libs. And if they get into power, they want to, send libs up in helicopter rides and kill them. Like that's their objective. They want to kill communists. And of course, they define a communist as anything. It's kind of like the whole meme with Antifa. It's like, well, they call anybody a fascist. It's like, yeah, and then you have like Bernie's fanboys where if you have blue hair, they're going to call you a communist. If you're a woman and you're not in the kitchen making a sandwich, they're going to call you a communist. It's like the same. They're basically like the right wing version of Antifa. These people, the libertarians. It's disgusting. And so I made a video a little while back where I was talking about how well, no, it really is. It really is. I mean, both sides on this issue are just absolutely, when it comes to Antifa versus the alt-right, like they're both equally pernicious. I mean, they're both disgusting. And so Bernie's on the other side of it, of course, and his supporters are a bunch of rabid lunatics. And so here's the thing. Here's the other aspect that these two have in common. And I haven't seen anybody really talk about this, but I'm calling Bernie a Canada's Bernie. Because what did Bernie do in the last election? Oh, sure, he came out and endorsed Clinton or whatever. I mean, took him long enough to do so. But no, his supporters, about 14% of them voted for Donald Trump. Think about that. Just think about that for a moment. 14% of those who voted for Bernie Sanders. In other words, the nominally most progressive people around, right? The most woke people around, the most resistance type people around. They voted for Donald Trump. Why? Because they're populist left and Donald Trump's populist right. And what's the difference between the two? Nothing. So of course they were going to vote for him. And who was basically behind that sort of movement? Well, to a lesser extent, Kremlin Kyle. I mean, he wasn't too overt about it, but I mean, a lot of his fanboys, they got the message. They went out and voted for Trump. And then, of course, Neckbeard Jimmy Dore. What did he do? He got into a very, very heated argument with Ben Mankiewicz on TYT and shouted at him, called him, some nasty names and stuff. Because why? Because Ben Mankiewicz supported Hillary Clinton. Neckbeard Jimmy said, Donald Trump is anti-neoliberal, so, Donald Trump's better, because they weren't debating about Bernie versus Clinton, as I recall. They were debating about Clinton versus Trump. And what did Neckbeard Jimmy Dore say? He said, oh, well, Trump's better. He's closer with Russia. He's going to get along with Russia. He's going to be friends with Russia. Whereas Hillary Clinton, she's going to stand up to Russia and oppose Russia. It's like, oh, thank you, Jimmy Dore. You just explained very well on who should be the American president. You want a commander-in-chief that stands up to your enemies. Like, that used to be common sense. Again, with the fifth column right? Era of cringe, where fifth columns are seen as first columns. And an L is seen as a W. No, I wish that we could go back to seeing a fifth column as a fifth column, and a W as a W, and an L as an L. I mean, this is just, it's so stupid. It's so stupid what's happened to the West. I mean, we've been taken over by a bunch of Russian memetics. It sucks what they've done to us. Just how powerful their asymmetric campaign has been to sow discord in our political discourse. It's pathetic. And just how many people bought it hook, line, and sinker. And then you got like the Bernier types. Bernier is basically like a Nigel Farage type up in Canada. And what does he do? He's out here and he's basically, he's got a lot of the aesthetics. He's got a lot of the populist sort of appeal that, lends itself to the Putin agenda, the Dugin agenda. And you might think, well, what do free markets and stuff have to do with fascist Russia? It's like, well, no, I can tell you, they don't care. They don't care. All that stuff is just, that's cute. He's a populist. That's what matters. He's somebody who causes chaos. He's somebody who causes division. He's somebody who has no interest in uniting the country. His whole thing is to rile people up and sow discord. That serves the aim of the Kremlin. Similarly with the Bernie Bros and so on. And the thing is, so the Bernie Bros voted for Trump, and that cost Hillary Clinton the election, basically, when 14% of the Democrat who endorsed her voted for her opponent. How pathetic is that? And then with Bernier, well, the good news here, there is some good news. There is some good news, though. Bernier is going to do the same thing on the right side. And I got a lot of issues with Trudeau personally, a lot of issues with Trudeau. But in Canada, right, you don't vote for the prime minister unless you live in their riding. You vote for the party. And on parties, the Liberal Party is better than any of the alternatives. And none of them are hawkish, unfortunately. Scheer's a joke. Scheer's a joke. I mean, Scheer attacks Trudeau as being weak on China, but then Scheer's weak on Russia. So it's like, I mean, they're two sides of the same coin in that regard. What matters is, like, if they both are bad on foreign policy, then the next angle is, well, you look at their economics and their social policy. Well, Scheer's social policy is a disaster. He's anti-choice, so that basically rules him out. Trudeau isn't, but the party more importantly. Well, when it comes to the Conservatives, though, this probably should be a pretty clean election for them, because Trudeau has had scandals, of course. The Conservatives have scandals too. Nobody really talks about those, of course, but we have Canada's Bernie, Canada's Bernie, Maxime Bernier. He's basically Bernie with an extra R. And what's he going to do? He's going to split the vote. And he's going to hand Trudeau the election. And that's the thing, right? When I go on these free speech groups that support Maxime Bernier, and I see what they talk about, and I'm like, well, hey, look, you know that this guy's splitting the Conservative vote. What do they say? What did they call the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada? Andrew Scheer. What do they call him? They call him Scheerdo. In other words, they're saying he's basically like Trudeau. He's a conservative. He's not a real conservative. He's not far right enough for them. And so they'll go and vote for the People's Party of Canada. By the way, I just gotta say that right now to my hawks out there. If I tell you that there's a party and the name of the party is the People's Party of Canada, like, y'all are thinking what I'm thinking, right? You're thinking like hammers and sickles. You're thinking comrades with the fists raised. You're thinking solidarity of all the workers, voice the praises of the dear leaders. You're thinking red and gold banners. You're thinking portraits emblazed with aesthetics and imagery of the great chairmans of, like, Kim and Mao and Engels and Marx and all that crap. Like, you're thinking it's some commie crap, right? Like, think about that, right? The People's Party. That sounds like some commie BS, right? No, that's the Canadian Libertarian Party. See, that's the thing. I mean, they talk about horseshoe theory as like being a meme or whatever, that, oh, it was created as satire. It's like, I don't care that it was created as satire. It's true. Like, so what? It's like, if I create some satire saying that gravity exists, does that mean that gravity doesn't exist because I made a satirical thing about gravity? It's like, no, gravity still exists irrespective of that. Likewise, whether the person who originally came up with horseshoe theory was making it as a parody or whatever is irrelevant, because it's true, except the only caveat is it's not quite accurate because it misses the full circle, which is that politics is a circle. And if you go far enough to the right, you come back around to the left and vice versa. And Hitler and Stalin are right there, basically, like touching each other right at the bottom, and the centrists are right at the top on the complete opposite end of the circle. That's how I see the political spectrum. And of course, there are three spectra to politics. There's social, economic and foreign policy. Those are the three primary dimensions. And then you take them all together and you get a circle. And the thing is, Bernier, I mean, wow. The name for it already right off the bat sounds like some Marxist BS. Like you're going to be getting like a whole bunch of commie garbage, basically. Like we're going to, let's study the great thoughts of the dear leader Vladimir Lenin and how he thought that the revolution would manifest after, X amount of time and so on, accumulation of capital in the economy or whatever. And it's like some dry theory or whatever read to you by some dude who's like very scrawny and doesn't understand that he'd be the first to get taken to the back if the revolution actually happened, like some Zinoviev type figure, some Kamenev type figure. I mean, just cringe and fringe. But this is the Libertarian Party. I mean, at least in America they call it the Libertarian Party. Now there is a Libertarian Party. There's actually the Libertarian Party of Canada. Lackluster Lauren Southern ran for that in Abbotsford and took a massive L. I think she only got something like 200 votes, which is hilarious. I mean, that's hilarious. That's hilarious right off the bat. I mean, some of my videos get more than 200 views. She got 200 votes. And that's like Lackluster Lauren. Like everybody knows Lackluster Lauren. Sad, pathetic, massive L. I mean, okay, she didn't have as much notoriety at the time. I don't care. She's fringe, she's cringe. She got 200 votes, big L. I find that hilarious. I find that absolutely hilarious and satisfying that she got her ass handed to her. So yeah, the Libertarian Party up in Canada not doing too well. So Maxime Bernier starts the People's Party of Canada as like, it's the actual ascendant Libertarian Party. Again, it sounds communist. That's pretty goofy. I mean, it'd be like, imagine you made a political party, and you were going to call it like the Marxist, Leninist, Maoist, Stalinist Party of America. And somebody asks you, well, what's your party's ideology? And you're like, on-ran libertarianism. It's like, that's how goofy this is, right? It's like, no, when you expect that to be communism, it's like the People's Party of Canada. That sounds communist, dude. I mean, but of course, that's the thing with these populists is like, it could be communist, could be fascist, could be libertarian, could be progressive. It's all the same. It's all the same. They have the same foreign policy. It's all let Russia do whatever they want, let them take over the world. It's all, blue-haired feminists bad, Gamergate good. It's all, the gamers good, social justice or whatever bad, all this sort of thing. It's like, I mean, it's just it's so stupid. It's so stupid. It's so cringy. And when it comes down to it, why did he start this party in the first place? Because if you know anything about Maxime Bernier, you would know, well, he ran for the leadership of the actual Conservative Party of Canada, which, by the way, the funny thing about the Conservative Party of Canada, it used to be divided. Actually, up until Stephen Harper united it in the early 2000s, it was divided between the Progressive Conservative Party and the Western Alliance. Like, they were two different political parties, and the Conservatives kept on getting their ass handed to them by the Liberals because, they were divided. They were literally two parties. So then Stephen Harper was like, I got a good idea. Let's, bring these two parties together. And he did it, and he won. And he was very successful, and he got a few terms in office as the Prime Minister of Canada. Very successful in that regard. Now, I got a lot of issues with Stephen Harper, but he's a pretty smart guy. Now, unfortunately, he's gotten fringe and cringe, and now he's singing all the praises of the populist despots around the world and stuff, and it's unfortunate. And he's a toady for Trump, and he's a toady for Orban, and he's basically a toady for Putin at this point. But there was a time when he was like an accountant-type figure, a smart kind of guy who had political know-how and tact, and was able to bring two opposing sides together and defeat the Liberals. And he you got to give him credit for that. That was a smart move. Bernier is kind of like the anti-Harper in that respect. He's divided the Conservative Party. He ran. He was a member of the Conservative Party of Canada. He ran, and he ran against Andrew Scheer for the party nomination. Andrew Scheer got 51% of the vote. Maxime Bernier got 49%. And instead of saying, you know what, we had a very close race. You fought a good campaign, Mr. Scheer. It's unfortunate. I would have led the party in a better direction, but, I still believe in conservatism, and I think, we need to defeat the liberals, and so I'm going to place my support around you. And, and sure, in the back of his head, he's thinking, one day this guy will resign, and then I'll take over. But no, that's not what happened. No, Bernier got butthurt, and he said, I'm going to be a sore loser. I'm going to go and I'm going to start my own party, and I'm going to call it the People's Party of Canada. And I'm sure Scheer must have thought, what, did you start reading Marx, bro? And of course, Bernier went and did it, and he split the vote. So if you're Trudeau right now, you have a million scandals. You have a billion scandals. You have a scandal for breakfast and a scandal for lunch and 2 scandals for dinner and pour scandal on your dessert. Just have gaffe after gaffe, scandal after scandal. He can do anything. And the Conservatives are probably going to lose because Bernier's got all these, young people out there, the helicopter rides Conservatives. The people who see Andrew Scheer, the people who see the Conservative Party of Canada as libcuck. He's splitting the vote, and I know these people. I know what they're like. I went to school with some of these people. I see them on like free speech groups and stuff. I see what they're about, the Bernier supporters. Why do they like Bernier? They see him as based and pilled. They see him as like this god emperor type figure of sorts. They see him as, they call him Mad Max. And they see him as, he's going to purge Canada of the degenerates and everything. And he's going to bring Christian righteousness to Canada. And he's going to, basically be like a Putin figure and all this sort of stuff. The same rhetoric that they talk about with Putin, He's going to clean up, get rid of the gays, get rid of the feminists, all this sort of stuff. That's why they like these people. I mean, I got issues with Andrew Scheer. I told you, he's anti-choice. I got a lot of problems with him. That's not far enough for these people. The people that like Bernier, they see Andrew Scheer as a liberal. They see him as a Jew cock. I mean, that's what they call him. They call him a Siocon, all this sort of stuff. They see Bernier as like pilled or whatever, that like Bernier is not going to, be a Jewish puppet or whatever. That's the kind of people that support Bernier at this point. There's a lot of anti-Semitism that goes into it. And it's pretty pathetic. And if you call these people out, if you bring up anything, if you make fun of Bernier, they'll have their defense of like, oh, well, you must be with the dairy cartels or whatever, or you must be, that's what they try to tout it in. They'll be like, oh, well, I'm not anti-Semitic, or I'm not trying to split the party. I just care about economics. Oh, right. It's about economics. I can tell you the last thing that libertarians care about is economics. I mean, you would think it's libertarianism. That should be their primary issue, right? Is economics. You would expect libertarians that they will disagree on foreign policy. They'll disagree on social issues. But the one thing that they'll agree on is small government on economics. But no, that's not true. That's not true at all. Their big issues are like foreign policy. They love Russia. They want us to do nothing. They want us to be isolationist. And they hate feminists and they hate liberals. Like, those are their 2 defining characteristics. And then there's some economics thrown in there. And they're not even really like free market either, because they think that like the church should run everything, and that we should go back to like some proto-feudal type system of like lords and serfs and crap like that. Like there's a lot of like paleocon romantic sort of notions of like fascism and stuff that goes into it. It's pretty pathetic. I mean, Ben Shapiro, I've talked about this. He's one of like the only principled libertarians that's out there that's like an actual libertarian. All these other people, they just embrace the label like own the libs or whatever, but it's a more convenient way of saying National Socialist for them. Like, they're not actual libertarians. Like, Ayn Rand probably would say, what the hell are you doing? Like, you call yourself a Nazi, bro. Don't call yourself libertarian. But it's like, that's the thing with these people, right? They know that Nazi is unpalatable these days, so they have to pick another label, and libertarian still has some legitimacy to it. So let's go there. Yeah, that's the ticket, right? That's their attitude with respect to all this. And so when it comes to Bernier, yeah, he's out of his mind. I mean, it's just if you're a conservative in Canada, wow, you got to be pissed at this guy for basically killing your party's chances, or at least making it very, very hard for Scheer to beat Trudeau. I mean, it's just this is the level of just lunacy where it's like, oh, Sheer is not conservative enough, so I'm gonna support this fringe and cringe lunatic. And you see this in America with the some of the Republicans that think of Trump as too soft on Jews or whatever is their framing. They support like Tulsi Gabbard, Takey Tulsi. They go out and they're saying like how Tulsi Gabbard won't send white men to die for Jews. Like that's their big thing. And they see Trump as like, oh, he lied to us. He said he was gonna get tough, or I mean, he didn't. I mean, they were reading into Trump as being anti-Jewish. That was their whole thing. And I mean, Trump did have some dog whistles. Trump had some gaffes that could lead you to think that he's not going to be an ally of the Jewish people. But they're very upset. They're very disappointed that he did turn out to be somewhat of an ally for Israel. Now, mind you, very weak sauce ally. He's not doing anything about Bashar the Butcher. He's not doing anything about Iran. Iran shot down a drone and he didn't even seize the opportunity. So he doesn't really care about Israeli security. But he's also not calling for the extermination of Jews. He's not saying that Israel doesn't have a right to exist, all that sort of stuff. So it's like, but no, that's too soft for these people. That's not far enough. They want the destruction of Israel. So they go and support like Takey Tulsi Gabbard or whatever. Yeah, no, it's it's pretty gross. It's pretty grotesque, right? Wow. I mean, what an era of cringe. I mean, so Bernie, People's Party of Canada, they got no chance of winning. But I can tell you, Conservative Party of Canada, lesser chance of winning thanks to this. So if the Conservatives lose in October, you're gonna have Mad Max, Canada's Bernie, Maxime Bernier, to thank for that. So thank you for watching, YouTube. I'll see you guys later.